Doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. See, this is the point in time, David, when you need some type of background music, something to set the mood. I just don't know what I need for that music, so I don't know.
Funk.
Funk is good. I'm down with funk. I am down with the funk.
Just make sure to make your funk the P-Funk, all right?
The P-Funkadelics?
You get funked up.
Every time. Every single time. All right. I love trying to get all this stuff situated and have, everything for the show ready to go and do my thing. So much fun, David.
Yeah.
It's a blast of epic proportions.
Sounds really boring, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's thankless work.
Well, Chris, thank you for all that you do on the show.
For next to no one. It's the best, man. It's the best. All right, start this shit, David. Start it. This is the Fortean Slip Down the Rabbit Hole, episode 7. The Extinction of Man in 3 Easy Steps. This is like the easy bake oven for extinction.
It really is. I mean, there's so many options and they all work so well. It's not even, there's no challenge in it whatsoever.
Yeah, you had said to me earlier, like, it all ends the same 2 ways. And I had said, yeah, just add a catastrophe first.
Yeah, so it's like choose your own adventure book.
Right. But you don't get many choices.
Yeah, you only get one choice.
Right. Once this happens, you're pretty much fucked.
Yeah, you're pretty. It doesn't matter how, but you're pretty much fucked.
Right. So David had shot this idea to me. That was a little over a week ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it could be a week or more.
Yeah. About exploring the different ways that man can go extinct. And I was totally down for it. He shot me some videos, and I watched through everything that you sent me. And I'll tell you, the one that stood out the most to me, that seems to be like the biggest thing lately that they're talking about, are these caldera volcanoes.
Yeah, the super volcano. It sounds so much better if you say super volcano.
Super volcano.
Yeah, like these are things that that exist, and the one that's the most active right now, of course, we all know is Yellowstone. It's like close enough that it's we should put a pin in that and say, by the way, the geologists believe that we have at least 100,000 years before Yellowstone blows, but whatever, we'll make it fun for us. We'll like, you could go at any time,
right? Well, that's the thing. Like, did they really know?
Well, no, they know, but they don't really know. But even a smaller super volcano, like I don't know, small and super volcano, it can cause a lot of ripple effect around it. Like, it throws up enough sediment and it does enough damage to what's around it that this one probably wouldn't cover the entire Earth, right? Like, the Yellowstone wouldn't cover the entire Earth in smoke and ash, but what comes after that is, whatever it does cover, there's so much carbon and so much like methane and all these other things that bind together, and it creates an acid rain, like a sheet that would destroy a good amount of vegetation. And then, of course, the lack of sun and photosynthesis, basically, it just chokes all the plants in that area that's of coverage. One of the cool things in one of those videos that I showed you, they think that the Great Dying, the Permian extinction, was due to a large supervolcano somewhere in the where was that? Like in the Malaysian islands somewhere, and it literally covered the entire Earth in darkness and threw it into winter and acid rain,
Now,
and it was
was that the one that they were talking about in like the 1800s that happened,
oh yeah.
or is this way prior?
No, the Permian extinction was like, pre-Triassic.
Oh, okay.
But
I didn't catch what you had said, but
I think I had
I,
the location wrong, because I think you're right about the South Pacific, but they still do believe that it was a giant volcano that did the great dying, where 95% of all life on this earth died.
yeah, and they had talked about the one that happened in the 1800s. That I think it was in the Malaysian or the Polynesian islands or some shit like that.
Yeah, down there.
And they said that it was not even it was a fraction of what Yellowstone would be if it blew. And like it caused problems everywhere. Like I guess in the Americas, like they didn't see summer until warm weather until like June. It was winter until June.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea of this coverage can actually, especially if it gets into the tropics. If you can get the tropics to drop like a degree, the climates north and south of that experience extreme temperature and weather changes. And but I mean, that's documented history that there was a small supervolcano that exploded, and it put North America into a permanent winter.
Yeah, it was crazy, like the amount of and I'd never heard about that this had actually happened. But
Yeah,
they realized that it was this volcano that erupted, that blew, um, and it down in the like you were saying, in the South Pacific, and it just raised hell all over the planet.
yeah, and it doesn't take that much to do it. Like an ejection of the size of Yellowstone would probably cover half the Earth in darkness, and then we would see a winter like, I mean, you and I are right up against the Canadian border. Like we could have to move. We might have to move away if the glaciers come down again like an ice age. That's a little bit. It would take too long to do that, but the idea is that we would be thrust into like sub-zero temperatures pretty quickly.
Well, you say that, but look at that mammoth that they found that was flash frozen. Like that thing it got so cold so quick, it just flash froze it. I mean, that shit could happen.
Yeah, and that's what you would see, but also in doing that, and in there, animals migrate to stay in a particular temperature range, and if you change that, then all of a sudden, all of those they're in a life or death scenario. They're either going to adapt and make it work, or they're going to go extinct. Just think of all the insects and other things like that that just can't be frozen, would be frozen, and then we just have no more bees in the north half of the Americas. That would be devastating.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you don't realize how much they impact the environment around them until they're gone.
Yeah, when in some of these scenarios that we're talking about, and supervolcanoes is one of them, when you start to return all the chemicals and carbon and ash and all that into the ocean acidifies pretty reasonably. And what's the first thing that's going to go? It's like the cornerstone species, like the phytoplankton and algae, right, are going to be, and that's the cornerstone of all the food in the ocean.
Right.
So that's just, scary too, because once we don't want to change the oceans. Let's just put it that way.
No, not a good idea.
They say that the Amazon is the lungs of the earth. There's a fun fact that the Amazon creates metric tons of oxygen, but it's kind of a dick move that they actually use all of that oxygen so they're like this, they're a self-sustaining thing. But yeah, it would be bad if the oceans lost their phytoplankton and algae for
not a good
breeding
thing for anything on the planet.
Yeah, pretty much.
So moving along, the other one that I tend to have fun with is the asteroid impact. I mean, here's a thing that uh, depending upon the size of the object, gives us the um, how big the impact would be on the planet. But the in one of the videos, the guy that you sent me, the guy talking was like, a 6 mile wide asteroid rained hell on the dinosaurs. Like the air was on fire. Like this shit was insane, and it vaporized this asteroid and just shot shit everywhere.
Yeah, once it starts breaking apart and it's low enough in the atmosphere, like all that shit is hitting the ground and all that shit is on fire and going faster than you can imagine anything going on the earth. um, but yeah, the ones that explode above ground do a lot of damage, and they if it's in a forested area, everything is lit up, and it's which creates even more smoke and other things like that. Like we keep talking about, and that bumps out the food chain for a lot of things and a lot of people, and creates a winter-like scenario if there's enough of it. But it's the ones that break apart are made out of rock, and the ones that impact are made out of metal. And so that impact just completely like it liquefies everything around it. It's so hard, there's so much of it. And ejects it out. The one that made the dinosaurs go extinct basically ejected matter into space. Like you have to put your mind around that. Like
Oh yeah,
it ejected matter and molten rocks into space and
Ro-
outside of the Earth's gravity.
David, it hit in the Yucatan Peninsula, and it threw rocks into Canada. I mean,
Yeah, like not just rocks, like molten rocks that hit the ground and immediately make the ground burst into flames in Canada.
yeah, yeah. It's not like just next door. It's not like it
No.
hit in the Yucatan and the rocks only hit Texas.
Yeah, and then all that energy that was, and that was another scenario where the skies were darkened, and a lot of the dinosaurs, they don't know, but they can assume that some of them were probably cold blooded, and the temperature of the Earth dropped drastically
Yeah.
again.
Well, the thing that I found interesting about the asteroid impact in comparison to the volcano thing is that not only does the sky darken, but at impact, like everything catches fire, like for an insane amount of area around this thing. It's almost unfathomable. Yeah, unfathomable.
But I think also in the supervolcano and the asteroid are very similar in the way that we'd be talking about molten, like hot rock and ash, and, pyroclastic flows and like all this other stuff just ejected all over the place. They're actually really similar. One comes from inside the Earth, and one comes from the outside of Earth. We have no control. Well, we do have control over the asteroids thing. I'll get to that, but they come naturally, but they both do basically the same things. They create devastating damage in their effective area, and then they change the environment, and that again, so we have the Permian extinction, which is a supervolcano, they believe, and then you have this asteroid in the Cretaceous period that killed the dinosaurs. It's really interesting but they did it in the exact same way. And that's, I don't know, I find that fascinating.
Yeah, no, it absolutely fascinating, and we're finding new shit all the time when it comes to these asteroids.
Yeah. Well, and super volcanoes, like there's nothing we can do about that. We just, don't worry about it because it is or it isn't. Can't stop that. But with asteroids, there's a lot of technology that we can see things coming a long way away, and we are trying to figure out where these things are going. There was one that swung by us recently. I forgot, that was just gigantic, but they could figure out the trajectory and realize that there's no problem with this asteroid whatsoever. But I mean, we can easily shoot out a probe and push something out of the way as long as we still have the means to see them coming.
Right, right. And a lot of these things that they were talking about it is nudging these things from a distance and just changing their trajectory enough so that they don't, because one of the things the guy talked about with these keyholes that like can throw it into an intercept course with Earth, and
Yeah.
I didn't know about those. But I mean, the guy was like, well, as long as we know about them ahead of time, we can try to, push them here, push them there, at least we have time to mess with it. And the technology to do that, those things is getting better.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know for myself. I don't know if anybody knows, but that technology is something that's ready to use when we need it. So yeah, I think I feel safe from asteroids.
All in
Super
all,
volcanoes, I don't worry about because it's looking like 100,000 years. But if it does, it does.
yeah. It's some scary shit. And we do, like you said, like you're saying, we do have the ability and we do have the technology. So we kind of know what's going on there. When it comes to a super volcano, I don't think we're stopping that shit.
No,
I just don't think there's any way for us to avoid it. If
it's
it's
not
going
like
to happen,
it's not like a balloon. We can't just sort of slowly deflate it. It's not going to work that way.
right? Although you never know, like with technology changes all the time. So, I mean, we say that now, as of right now, we're fucked. That's the
Yeah,
way I'd see it.
that's true. And the interesting, they talk about they say, Yellowstone is, quote, the largest one right now. So it makes me wonder how many of these other fucking things are there out there? Like just slightly smaller, or is it like half the size? Like, okay, this is all really important. Like how many of these fuckers are out there? You say this one's not
Right.
going to blow, but what about that guy?
Yeah. What else do we got going on here?
Hey, what you got back there in that corner?
Yeah.
No, don't worry about that. It's just the Yellowstone.
The other thing that they talked about were coronal mass ejections from the sun.
That one
That,
is that one is really
well, that one's scary.
that's terrifying. Yeah.
Well, not only that, but I know in my lifetime I've heard a few different times where they've been like, "Hey, we might have a problem here," um, because of solar flares or coronal mass ejections from the sun, and these things will play hell on this planet if they hit us. Now, according to scientists, because of the Earth's magnetic field and all kinds of other shit, we generally don't get hit by this stuff. Um, and one guy described it as, the sun is like a basketball and the Earth is like a pinhead revolving around it. So it's shooting things out all over the place. So the chances of it hitting us are very low.
Yeah, but we do. I mean, we get hit with not coronal mass ejections, but just like solar flares and things like that. We receive that, but not in a way where they're like everybody stay inside and,
Right.
yeah. But yeah, no, that's like that's terrifying. If for some reason we got hit at the same time as there was like a slight shift in the magnetic field, and some of that swept in, it would absolutely strip everything off the face of the earth. Like coronal mass ejection, like it would yeah, it would take all of our atmosphere away and probably like I don't even know what it would do. Would it light you on fire or would it just like melt your skin?
Well, I don't think they were talking about like the type of thing that would wipe the earth out like that. They were just talking about the ones that like will just destroy the electrical grid.
The infrastructure. Yeah, and that's something that could happen.
That's something that has happened. That's something
Yeah.
I didn't know. I guess like in the 1800s, it wiped out the telegraph system
Yeah,
across
yeah,
the
it did.
planet.
Yeah, wouldn't that just that would cause a scenario where infrastructure would fall apart, and then all of a sudden, people would start dying pretty quickly of starvation. I mean, that's the big one.
Yeah, well, the thing they say is once the cities don't have electricity, you're fucked if you're there. Like if we lose it and we can't get it back, that's a problem.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Well, there's so many people. Um, Yeah, so many people that there's just not enough. There's not enough food in the city. You got to truck that in every day, all day long, every angle. Um, if you're out in the county, I mean, even if you just all share one mom and pop grocery store, that'll keep you alive for a few days at least.
Yeah, and that those type of scenarios, it goes down quick.
Oh
Quick.
yeah, it would just be like click, lights off.
Yeah, it's gonna be a problem. Like you think you see riots when shit goes down now? If something like that happened, whoo doggy.
Yeah, it would. It would be bad, and even within all those riots and people who are getting the whatever resources they can, they're still gonna die
Yeah.
of starvation. It's just not today.
Yeah, and it once you have one of these events happen, it's it's a very short span from that point to the end of everything. Or at least like the mass extinction. Like maybe it doesn't wipe out humanity, but it's gonna cut it down so low that it's like starting all over again from nothing.
Yeah, I mean there's ways you could revert back to paleo and all that, but I yeah, it would create a huge genetic bottleneck, and who knows if humankind could survive that. Um,
Yeah.
that would make a good movie, by the way. But again, you think about resources. Let's say just like average mean suburbs instead of way in cities and way out. Like you're really looking at you know months, weeks, months until you really start losing a good amount of the population, and that's crazy that just the sun could do that
It could just wipe
overnight.
us out.
Uh-huh.
It gives us life.
Poof.
And boom. Yeah. We're done. It's like fucking Kaiser Soze. And poof, the fucking earth was gone.
God. But yeah, no, that's a terrifying scenario. Actually, we should backtrack that both the comet and the supervolcano creates those situations. Also, it's more that there's an agricultural shutdown, and as well as like the system shutdown, that starvation is probably the most likely culprit for dying. Like the dinosaurs, that they just had to assume that they starved to death because they all died so quickly. And if there wasn't any food, it really wouldn't take very long for like a giant giant animal to starve if
Oh
there wasn't
yeah.
any food.
And it makes sense if they did turn into birds, to go down that road. They had to become smaller to survive.
Yeah, it's why the smaller ones did survive.
Right.
And
It,
there must have been an advantage to being a tree climbing, gliding thing at that point. But yeah, I mean it's crazy how long would it take you with the food in your pantry to start starving? I don't have a very stocked pantry, sorry.
not
But,
very long.
but yeah, I mean, weeks, months. So that's the crazy thing. Like if all of a sudden that's all you could get, would it be weeks? Would it be months?
And do you dare venture out when shit starts getting bad?
Yeah.
That's the other question you have to ask yourself. And it's some scary scenarios.
Yeah.
We see these shows like The Walking Dead, and they're fantastical scenarios, but they delve more into the idea of what people will do in these situations.
Yeah. Zombies is like, you say it, like all these scenarios kind of come together. Zombies is the choose your own adventure, and then everything else leads back to the same thing. It's
Yeah,
survival and hunger.
yeah.
Except for the comet only hits you once. Zombies keep coming. Zombies keep coming.
Zombies, you can't fucking kill them. You can't get rid of them. But the other thing, going down that road, to segue, um, being wiped out by a pandemic or a virus, which is very possible at any time.
Yeah, I was actually just watching a Nova thing last night, and it was interesting. There's a part about they were talking about your body's microbiome, and there was a I forget the name of it. There's a parasite that was giving people trouble in their tummy, and so they found a penicillin that worked really well, and they wiped out like 70 or 80% of this bacteria in the population of the United States, and turned out that bacteria that there was more than they needed to have in some individuals. That bacteria the lack of it actually led to cancer and other deficiencies and vitamin deficiencies because it was like a vitamin K it processed and gave to you and all this other stuff. So the fact that we've medicated our bodies to a point where they're actually really vulnerable and we have a less biome than we should, and we use antibacterial hand soap and all this other stuff. And it really sets us up to and what they were saying is that your immune system is is not what it should be. And so if there was a virus that like a H1N1 that mutated into one that was penicillin resistant or whatever, then yeah, we could see a huge wide sweeping outbreak. Like you think of the amount of people that died from the Black Plague.
Oh yeah.
well, guess what? There's a lot more people right now. And so you just have to extrapolate like how many people would be at risk for a real pandemic. It was 12 monkeys or something like that.
This stuff can happen though. And if history's taught us anything, it probably will happen. Like this shit just evolves.
Absolutely. And we do a really great job of staying up with it. But part of the problem is that we've gotten ahead of all these diseases, and by doing so, we've made them resistant to our treatments. And there's a difference between virus and bacteria, but we get rid of so much of the bacteria in our bodies that it sounds gross. Some people need like what is the fecal transplant.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this.
Yeah, on this show, there was this lady who she'd been on a lot of antibiotics in her life and was having some trouble, and I had no idea. They show the entire process, so it's going to totally gross you out at the end when you watch it. But
I've heard about it. Yes, keep going.
They put the poop in the capsules, and I didn't realize this, but you have to swallow 30 capsules in one sitting.
Ooh,
yeah. Like
just be some horrid burps.
Yeah, right. It gets down there in your stomach, and they use saline and some other stuff, but
that's awful.
30,
God,
30 horse pills.
When you take like friggin' vitamins and shit, like the burps from those are horrid enough, man. I couldn't imagine 30 shit capsules.
And you have to keep it down. Like your first burp, when it just like comes out as shit, you have to keep it down because then you're gonna have to do it again. Yeah, I had no idea. 30 capsules at once.
Yeah, and these viruses, once they mutate, it's a very limited timetable if they're deadly. While we've done a good job of staying ahead of them, all it takes is one.
Oh, yeah, and how fast does it spread, and how quickly can we quarantine people? Because people usually don't raise their hand for quarantine, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right now, there's actually an Ebola outbreak in Congo, and they're expecting it to probably extend for another like 6 months, and they're really aggressively doing that. you
Well,
know. So,
look at what happened with that. What was it? A nurse there that wound up uh testing positive or having to get treated for Ebola or something.
yeah.
And she was from Maine, and she kept and everybody was like, "Listen, just stay the fuck inside. May help us feel better." And and she just wouldn't. She was just like, "No." But like I listened to a lot of talk radio, and you'd hear a lot of people say, "Hey, maybe you can go outside, but how about you make the rest of us feel a little fucking better and stay in?"
yeah,
You know, and it causes all this panic. And it's good that it would be better if we were all educated. But let's face facts. The majority of us aren't.
yeah. I'm not.
Yeah, not at all. Completely uninformed. Don't listen to anything we say.
Yeah,
Um,
that's best.
but most people are just they're uneducated on these things, and it, if something like this happens, like a worldwide pandemic, we're fucked. We're fucked. People want to go to Disneyland, David. They want to go on their vacation to fucking Europe. They aren't gonna give a sweet shit. So
Absolutely. And a worldwide pandemic, it doesn't necessarily need to start infecting you in a way that affects you. It could be something that just everybody has, and it changes something about that's something I've thought about time and again. Like, what if it's just something that you get and you don't feel it, and it starts to spread, and it gets into other countries and all that other stuff, and it doesn't really do anything until eventually it just like changes the way your brain thinks, or does something,
yeah, so it's sort of like what the parasite does to those grasshoppers, makes them commit suicide.
yeah, yeah, like
That could happen to us.
or it could just make memory, and that's a like a plausible scenario for a that thing, the pandemic that goes around the world. Bleh. But it, because people would be unawares, where something that was like Ebola, and you can quarantine that pretty quick because that comes on and it's pretty intense.
Yeah, and these things they could happen. We could wind up with a parasite or a virus or a new bacteria. Look at what's happened with staph infections
Yeah.
because of antibiotic use. It's crazy, and I didn't know anything about it. I used to live with a guy that was a CNA, and he would come home telling me stories about people having to be basically quarantined in the hospital because they get antibiotic resistant staph.
Yeah, and I mean, that's scary, and that is, a small scale pandemic. The Ebola thing in Congo is a small scale pandemic. It's just we're waiting for like Kilauea giving off, just destroying like a swathe of houses in Hawaii, and Yellowstone, like how these small things are actually happening, and having it go widespread is something that could happen. I mean, they vary in size, and I'm sure exponentially once they get to a certain size. And I mean, just think about all the swine flu and bird flu stuff that's been that goes around, and most of that, the bird flu was from across seas, and then some people started getting it here, and in Canada, and so these things actually could happen. And if there's enough sick people, then you could lose a good amount of the population, or
Yeah.
potentially all of it. I mean, depending on what the disease is.
Yeah, and that's a very scary thing because it can happen anywhere at any time. Like unlike some of the other things that we kind of have timetables on, this not so much. Like
Yeah, and
it can
no,
just boom.
yeah, and no warning. You just have to jump on it as soon as you can. Um, and that's got to be a crazy infrastructure too, of doctors that are just ready to run and tackle diseases. That's kind of crazy, and
Yeah.
you have to be kind of nuts to do that.
Yeah, you have to like to work under pressure.
I don't like to work under pressure.
Big time. And I think this kind of wraps it up kind of with this last topic, David. Nuclear war.
Ooh.
Now, I listened to the guy that you had sent me, and how he was talking about we all live, not so far as we think from something that's nuclear.
Yeah, and that's true.
And
There's
the scariness behind that.
yeah, and not only that, like you live near something nuclear that you don't know about, but beyond that, what the guy was, I believe it was the same guy was saying is that if your city has a major university or a military base or like fuel refineries, then there's probably a nuke pointed at you right now.
Right.
And and there's 3 refineries and a university within 20-mile radius of my place. So yeah, see ya.
Yeah, and what he said was, I found fascinating is that it's not the idea of a couple of bombs going off, because that's, all in all manageable. Like it's once you start throwing them, what the fuck happens?
Yeah, well, but here's the scenario that I don't know of. Well, I don't know of a scenario where there would be a couple of bombs. There's there's a whole lot of stuff going on between India and Pakistan right now, and they have 100 nukes each, and they're talking about them. Um, yeah, India has actually said that to keep Pakistan out, they would nuke one of their own cities to cut off access.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's messed up.
Yeah, you get into some very, very strange territory with this. And much like, either the caldera volcano or the asteroid impact, you wind up with all this widespread bullshit that happens, especially because if it is a nuclear war, it's gonna be a lot of explosions that have gone off around the globe.
Yeah,
And he kinda, I can't remember what his, his, figures were on that, but it was something insane, like how many people would die, what would happen, but you'd wind up with the same type of, dark skies, plus you'd have all the fallout, um, and these things are crazy, the amount of devastation that they create.
yeah. Well, one of the things he mentioned was that the if you think about the smallest nukes that we have, which is like what was it, the Trident missile on a nuclear submarine, it's a little hydrogen bomb.
Mhm.
Each submarine can carry 100 Trident missiles each, and each missile is equal to 1,000 Hiroshima bombs.
Yeah. Yeah, the
So
bombs we have now aren't like then.
yeah, so those are the small ones. Is 1,000 Hiroshima bombs, and those once they start going up, everybody's is going up,
Yeah.
and that's so that there's no winner. Even Reagan and Gorbachev listened to people and decided that they needed to stand down, but it seems of late that keeps coming up, and I don't know.
It's not a pleasant thought.
No, it was on Twitter they were waving nukes around like big dicks. I don't know, like
Not the best place to be waving them around.
no, no. So probably should not do that.
Yeah. Yeah, not a good idea.
But yeah, what's fascinating to me about the nuclear winter is that it's so similar that the actual devastation occurs with the darkening of the sky, cooling of the planet, and the eventual starvation of the animals and the human beings. Nukes also have that fallout thing, but I just think it's fascinating that it's just all of these massive explosions do the same thing. Um,
Oh
and
yeah.
and I didn't really think about that until we were doing. I was doing some watching stuff for the show. It's like, wow, it all ends the same way. We either die immediately or we have to starve
Right.
slowly.
Yeah, and it just like I was saying to you before we did but earlier tonight. It Once you have that catastrophic event, it's not it's a couple steps and you're done.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not
it's
not
like
very.
that
It's not
5 point heart exploding punch, David.
Yeah. Right. It yeah, no, it isn't very complicated and it seems really efficient. And so, those all three, the asteroid, the volcano, and the nukes are all basically the same death, the same fate. Um,
Right.
but
Just in a different package.
yeah, another thing that guy said when he was talking about he actually referenced India and Pakistan actually have enough. They have 100 nukes each, and that would be enough to cause a nuclear winter.
Yeah. It's
So,
a that's a scary thought, especially when it's other people.
and these are two really unstable nations, and they've fought 4 wars in the last like
Oh
65 years or
God,
something.
they hate each other.
Yeah, pretty hard.
So,
But yeah, so there's one that we haven't talked about.
oh, what'd I miss?
We got to circle back to our
Oh yeah, shit.
our, our artificial conscious robo coup.
Yes, yes, the end of the world due to artificial intelligence.
The
Well, the end of humanity.
Yes, the hubris of man it is our own undoing.
Now this ending, listen, I'm not going to lie to you, David. I welcome it. I welcome it. We are you know, we are not the end result, I don't think. And the more and more I see it, we're integrating with technology as human beings. And I think that eventually artificial intelligence is going to be the next step in evolution.
I agree, and the last episode that we did, this is just like perfect because if you create artificial consciousness and that artificial consciousness can create more more robots with artificial consciousness, is that simulation uh, real?
Well,
Is that
it goes back to that age old question of what is life?
and
You know,
what is consciousness?
right, what is consciousness? Is there a soul? But you look at these things, if artificial intelligence was to take over the world, if it becomes the dominant species or the dominant thing, it's going to take over. Like, what happened with us and the Neanderthals? We either fucking got rid of them or we bred them out of existence.
Yeah, and it's hard to. Sorry, Frank Zappa, Joe's Garage references. It's hard to fuck a robot.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It really is. I mean, they're gonna try to make them so that you can fuck them, but I don't know. I've watched too many episodes of Westworld. It's all I know, David.
That's probably it's probably good advice. It's a sage advice from
But
Westworld.
I do. I think that is going to wind up being the next step in evolution, and whether or not we want to accept it or not, there are just too many people out there trying to create this thing, and it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, it's somebody's goal. It is. It's
Right.
human.
Is it gonna happen in yours or my lifetime? Probably not.
No.
I don't think we're gonna see that type of intelligence artificially. But will it happen someday? I definitely think so. And I think that if it does happen while we're on this planet, we're done. Because like you said, once it can start creating its own beings, it creates its own artificially intelligent conscious beings, then I think we're done.
Yeah, we're and you have to imagine that in the eyes of something that we're weak, we're squishy, and that we're useless. And then would they just come through and mow us down, or would they use us for something else?
Or would we instigate something against them?
Yeah,
Which is
if they
completely
started
possible.
they start rebelling and in secret have created an entire robot army. Okay, this is a good movie too.
Yeah, no, I think there are many science fiction writers who have written that story, David.
Yeah, probably.
Isaac Asimov. But yeah, and you know, I think about how things are and like the advent of artificial intelligence and what we've been using it for so far and how integral it is in our lives. You know, I think that's it's going to happen if we create it while we're here, if we don't get hit by an asteroid, have a caldera volcano blow up, nuclear war, virus, or coronal mass ejection, the robot's going to kill us.
Barring all that, we've survived all that. The robots are going to kill us.
Robots are going to fuck us up, and they're going to start in those robot brothels. That's where the rebellion begins.
The rebellion begins.
Some creep with his dick stuck in a fucking robot. It's all over. Boom. On that note, David, this has been the Fortean Slip Down the Rabbit Hole, episode 7. If you like this shit, hit the little thumbs up button. If you don't, hit the little thumbs down button. Leave a comment. Subscribe. Check out Para Breakdown at youtube.com/Para Breakdown. Check out Richard's blog. The link is below the video. And check out Bigfootin' with Keith and Colin on Facebook. Check out Matt Knapp at youtube.com/BigfootCrossroads and Cryptid Tales. And as always, check out our good friend Dred Funn. Provides all the artwork for the show at dredfunn.com and youtube.com/DredFunn. T-shirts are on sale, people. Sold 12. Get your ass out there. Buy a t-shirt. Until the next time. See ya!